Hey guys, Youngblood with you, and now that we're in 3.9.1, we have a new ship available in the game, being the Cutlass Blue. Looking at it, it is certainly blue. If you're unfamiliar with the Cutlass Blue, this ship is essentially designed to be the bounty hunting or police or kind of militia variant of the Cutlass line. There are some significant changes about this ship that we'll call out as we go through this. The most obvious that you're seeing is that the color scheme is blue. You'll also see that when the lights are engaged, you also end up having the red and blue kind of spinner bulbs on it, so you actually do feel like you're a law enforcement. That being said, anybody can have one of these, so obviously there's probably going to be a little bit of impersonating officers being a little bit of a risk out in the verse. Other things to look at on this ship, as far as the design is concerned, is the cockpit. You'll notice it actually has the rounded cockpit with less struts actually impacting your visibility. I'll go interior in just a sec so you can see that. Also, tucked under the back kind of wing areas, you have, let me zoom in, missile stores. So you can see you've got 3 racks of 4 on the left side, so you have 12 missiles there, and then you have 12 missiles on this side as well, giving you 24 missiles on this ship, which is pretty impressive. They are size 2 Tempest missiles. As far as the weaponry is concerned, on the manned turret up top, you have 2 Panthers, so size 3 laser repeaters. On the shoulders here, you have Scorpions, so those are size 2 ballistic Gatlings. And then underneath the ship, you have 2 gimbaled size 2 DRXJ2s. Those are actually going to be your distortion weapons. So when you think about the role of this ship and what you really want to be doing with it or what it should be used for, you would have those to help kind of disable the ship and then use some of the other weapons to actually do damage, so you could actually board and get on the ship and do some pretty good work. One other area that I think is important to show you is essentially there were kind of 3 primary differences between the Cutlass Black and the Cutlass Blue when this ship was really released into concept years and years ago. And initially it was supposed to have bigger engines, larger shield, extra power plant. Now, the one I'm going to talk about right now is the bigger engines, and you can see these are upscaled from the Cutlass Black that we are used to seeing. They are significantly larger. They have a very satisfying roar to them. The Cutlass Black is really designed to have a little bit more stealthy approach from a piracy perspective, as well as long-range efficiency, where the Blue is meant to be a little bit more performance-driven. So what you end up getting out of this is a ship that significantly accelerates better and decelerates better because of some of those engines. And it is a lot of fun to fly. It doesn't roll like a fighter. It doesn't, yaw like a fighter. It pitches pretty darn well. But really, it's the acceleration and deceleration where this ship really kind of, succeeds there. Now, that being said, you are a slightly larger, slightly heavier ship. You also have to take into account balancing from a gameplay perspective. So your top speed in the Cutlass Blue is about 956, which does fall short of where the Cutlass Black is. Aside from that, the components on this ship are a little bit of a disappointment, because what we were really kind of told we were going to be getting is basically a military spec ship or a militia spec ship, and it felt like what was really delivered to us was more in line with a Cutlass Red that was really just kind of reskinned with a few other pieces that were added to it. So I don't know if this is just the initial iteration and a lot of the components are going to change, because technically you could add whatever components you want into this ship as long as they're the right size, and it'll perform to however you expect it to be. There are some balancing things that CIG's talked about that may happen in the future, where certain ships may only be able to equip certain types of components. For example, like a competition grade ship may only be able to put in competition components, or maybe like stealth, but it wouldn't be able to put in military grade or industrial grade because they're too powerful or something like that. So maybe what we end up seeing is the Cutlass Black can only use like industrial or civilian, where the Cutlass Blue ends up being able to use military. It's hard to say. All of these things may change over the future as we kind of just go along. That being said, when we look at what's actually on this ship, again, the components basically match the Cutlass Red. So when we start talking about the ability to have larger shield or extra power plants, it's not happening. So there's one thing with the shields that I think is worth calling out, and that's to remind you all that when this ship was actually released in a concept, that's when we had shield in component sizes that were like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and it just scaled up like that. Because what we actually have right now in the game is vehicle, small, medium, large, capital. And the Cutlass line has a medium-sized shield on it. They obviously are not going to go up a size and give you a large size shield on this ship. That would be very, very, very overkill. So I think the alternative here is they give you a secondary medium shield, which I think is what they really should do, because that puts it in line with the Freelancer series and makes it all in all more competitive overall, which is really pretty relevant for a competition grade ship. That being said, it's not all bummers. There is a cool surprise that came on this ship, and that is that it actually has a QED, a quantum enforcement device. Now, what's important to call out here is that you don't actually have the quantum, snare. You're not pulling people out of quantum like the Mantis does. You'll notice that on the exterior of the ship, you do have the red bubble that encases the ship, but you do not have that kind of spinning gyroscope that you're used to seeing on the Mantis. The idea here is that you capture somebody via conventional means, you start to engage them, you try and keep them in place, and the dampener prevents them from jumping. That's a really nice utility for this ship to have, especially for those of you that have bounty hunted in the verse recently. It can be challenging to keep targets where you want them to without them running. This is going to be a really, really useful utility to have on a bounty hunter ship, whether you're trying to capture or kill. I would probably suggest that if you are going out to do that, just realize that distortion weapons like the DRXJs have been very much up or down, so I wouldn't count on those being significant right now. What I would probably do is put something long range on there like Panthers. Panthers fixed, or you can use ballistic Gatling guns or something like that. Maybe like all Scorpions would make sense on this, and then allow some longer range weapons on the turret. There's options that you have there, but I wouldn't just stick with this default component and weapons loadout. I would definitely consider doing a little bit of work and investing into some other components before you really go out and do your thing. Mentioned the rounded cockpit, you'll notice you can't really see any bars or struts. It is a very, very pleasant flying experience. In all reality, it would be nice if we sat up a little bit higher, something along like these lines maybe, because what you end up seeing is a lot of MFDs when you're sitting back in the ship and flying around. It's not terrible, but it could be significantly better. Essentially what we have is a really nice cockpit that's ruined by your screens. So with that in mind, let's go take a look at the interior of the ship. Once you come to the back, you still have your co-pilot seat. You do have a little bit of storage space over here. You do have a weapons rack here. This weapons rack does work. You have 2 bunks, which is great, and you can go up the turret to or you go up the elevator to the turret there. It works like you would expect, so we're not going to spend time on doing that. There are 3 airlocks into the main holding area. There's the 2 docking collars on the side of the ship that work like you would expect them to, and you've seen them on the other Cutlasses and the other ships that have the docking collars. And then you also have the airlock here at the rear that takes you to the cargo area, and then where you have the ramp to go exterior to the ship. Now, what we really have here is kind of the meat and potatoes of this ship as far as the bounty hunting capability, and it's your actual holding pods, your Durasteel pods. You've got a screen here that doesn't really work or interact today, but it's clearly going to give you information about the prisoners, so maybe you have to monitor their health or their hunger or their thirst or something like that. I assume what you're going to have here is a button for each one of the pods that you want to push, so you push it, and then it'll rotate around. The way that it's going to do that is pretty funny. You'll notice that these pods are actually attached to a rail, so you can almost envision these guys spinning around in a circle like laundry at a laundromat, which will be pretty funny to actually see. You do have 6 of those on each side, so you have an impressive ability to carry 12 prisoners on this ship, which I think is going to speak to overall, just ability to stay out capturing people for a long period of time, especially if you can end up kind of putting them in a stasis state, and you don't need to go drop them off and keep them alive and do all those types of things. So all in all, that's the Cutlass Blue. I'm pretty happy with it overall. I was honestly expecting a little bit more out of it based on kind of how they compared it to the Cutlass Black in the original release of the ship. That being said, the quantum device is a nice surprise. The cockpit is good. The acceleration and deceleration is fantastic. Having the You know, the flashy red and blue lights is a fun touch to have on this. The holding cells is exciting for some period of time whenever that becomes a relevant portion of gameplay. But for the time being, it's just a sharp-looking ship, and I really do like the Cutlass line. It's a well-designed, you know, ship series. So this is one that I was really excited to see and couldn't wait to get my hands on, and it's in the game, so I will take that as a victory for me. So, that's it for the Cutlass Blue. As I continue to try and do some gameplay surrounding like the quantum enforcement device and that sort of thing, I'll make sure to get some footage for y'all. If you have questions on this in the meantime, please get them in the comments. Otherwise, thank you all for watching. Have yourselves a wonderful day, and take care.